This presentation is brought to you by yours truly, Hannah H. Tarindwa. I am a lecturer. I am an advanced Toastmaster speaker, soon to be distinguished Toastmaster. I am an author of poetry, essays, and short stories, as well as a creativity consultant. I hope that you enjoy these presentations and hope to see you coming back for more. Now, we are going to be going into the second part of our M&E plan. If you haven't watched part 2A, I would strongly suggest that you do now so that you are up to date as to what we are talking about. Otherwise, the second part will somewhat be missing a lot if you just dive into it. The contents of this presentation involve the information system. We'll be looking at the impact evaluation design, as well as how to disseminate information from the M&E reports. Now, what is an information system? That's a very important thing to understand, because as we were talking, in M&E, we've talked a lot about data collection and explanation, but now that information, the data, has to become real information that informs actions and decisions to be taken by either the project managers or the stakeholders of the project. So the M&E plan must include these information systems, which are required. So from actually the collection of raw data, how is the raw data going to be collected, and how will it be converted to the comprehensive information for all stakeholders involved? So this means that there should be a diagram of data collection. That diagram should include how the information is going to be processed and analyzed or assessed. Then you should develop a reporting system. How are reports going to be? Are they going to be verbal and informal? Are they going to be written and documented? And that's important. If you're going to need to have a template of the reports, then those templates need to be designed, as well as the data collection tools. Are you going to be using surveys? Are you going to use an app? Are you going to do an observation where the people count and the people involved are not really required to collect? So all these data collection tools are very important to decide on and to agree on within the monitoring and evaluation plan. Right. So the information system, after it has been designed, you need to now design an impact evaluation. Remember, most of the projects that you want to do, they should have an impact. There must be a reaction after the project has been implemented, and this reaction needs to be evaluated, because you want to know if it's the right reaction that you were hoping for or an unexpected reaction. So impact evaluation, the M&E should have a design of how impact will be measured. Of course, it's difficult to always measure impact, particularly if it's emotional, but when there's an emotional reaction, most of the time there's either inaction or action. So for example, if people are happy with a new school, you will find that they will bring their children to it, they will talk about it in a positive light. If it's negative, then the impact, if it's a negative impact, obviously you're going to have activists talking against it, parents are going to withdraw from it, those sort of things. And so there must be a design of how to measure the impact and how the information will be collected for that impact evaluation. So it will include Experimental, observational. So experimental is actually when you have two groups. You've got a control group, and then the group that the project or the intervention is impacted by. Right, so you can have what we call quasi-experimental, right? Partly experimental. This post-test or pre and post-test with no control. So you just look at the situation. There's no second group to compare with that has not been given the intervention or that has not experienced the project. So I'll give another example. Maybe there was a borehole, or like boreholes were put at specific places. You cannot then say some people cannot access water. All of them will need that water. So that is partly experimental. And then the implementation plan. So of course you need to have that implementation plan, which is part of the project plan, so that you can see what was planned to be implemented and what was implemented and how did people react to it, what was the impact. And of course you must include execution responsibility. Who is going to do that evaluation? Is it going to be internal, or external? Is it going to be both, so that we can have a wider range of views in terms of feedback? Now, the last part is the information dissemination. So you've got all this information, you've got the design, you know that this is the method we're using to collect information, and this is the method we're going to use to check the impact of our activities. But now, how then do you tell your stakeholders? That's what we're talking about when we speak of information dissemination. How do we spread the news, so to speak? And this means that the information needs to be stored safely. So of course, there's collection. When you collect, you need to store it. Are you going to print it out? Are you going to put it on a cloud-based system? Or is it going to be in a specific computer, which is safeguarded? That is important. And then, when we share that information, are we sharing it adequately, the information from our M&E? We need to plan. How many times do we tell people information? There is such a thing as doing too much, and there's also such a thing as doing too little. So if after we've done our monitoring evaluation, do people understand the impact? Do people know if the learning process happened? Were things done the right way? If they were not done the right way, why were they not done the right way? What was supposed to change? All these things, but they must be continuously, there must be a time, a time every week on a Friday. We tell people this is how much we've done and how much we have achieved or how much we failed. And it should be done comprehensively. And when we speak of comprehensively, we're not only talking about using simple language, we are also talking about using the actual correct language. So for example, if you are in a Swahili-speaking nation, it would make sense to use Swahili as the language of choice, but because that is, if your stakeholders are predominantly a Swahili. But if you're going to also need English, maybe you want external interested parties or stakeholders to understand. Use a language that everyone or those people can understand. And in some cases, you can even use a multiple language approach. The point is that you want your stakeholders to truly understand what you're talking about, right? And this must be part of the plan. Don't just say, okay, we're going to write reports. In what language? In what English? What levels of English are you going to use? Because there's sometimes where reports tend to have this heavy academic language that nobody gets, even if it's educated people. Sometimes some educated people will be like, yeah, what are you trying to say? You can't use legal language when you're talking to social scientists. They might not quite understand each other. And it must be, this part of the plan is very important because it lets everyone know what is to be expected of them. Okay, so Media avenues. What are you going to use as your media avenues? These must be accessible and comprehensive to intended audiences. So for example, if you're going to use the radio to share your information, there must be radio waves in the area. You can't want to send information via internet in a place where people have no computers. So those are the things that you must consider. Then relevance. Now, M&E, like we said, it's looking at every aspect of a project, but there's some aspects that people don't really care about. They don't, it's not that, yeah, they don't care about it. They don't really have a vested interest in that aspect. So they might not really care about the budget. They might care more about the geographical location of the project. And I'll go back to my example of the boreholes. So if you decide now, they want to know, are the boreholes 500 meters away from the building so that everybody has access to it? For them, that's more important than to know that the borehole cost us $60 less. It's not relevant. And then timely and consistent, I already emphasized on this. If we agree that we're going to give the reports after 6 months, the reports should be ready and we should be consistent with the plan. And of course, the reporting and the archiving, it's important to keep those reports. They shall become someone's reference point. That's why we call it monitoring and evaluation assisted learning. Right. So after that, you must review the main plan. It's important. You must check if the main plan has been adhered to. Assess the methods that were used. With the methods that were planned, it must be part of it to say, part of the monitoring evaluation plan to assess the methodology of doing things. You should measure the level of success, and that is what we're talking about when we say impact. To what degree did people react to it? Were they just, oh, okay, or they were happy, or they were super excited? Those are measures of success. And then we learn from the future. So just understand that what you do today, it may be repeated tomorrow if it worked, or it might be a process to totally avoid in similar projects of the future. Oh. Okay, so I really hope that you have now caught on to what is needed in an M&E plan. And if you still have any questions, just remember you can always email me at maccafrica@gmail.com and let's have a discussion. And if you need in-depth lessons, then I can also tell you how much those will cost. Right now, I'm still working on a book, on a little guidebook for Africa in terms of monitoring and evaluation for small to medium enterprises, or for social enterprises also. So catch me on that email address, and I will see you at the next presentation.